Hey everybody, welcome back to Race of History. Today we're getting into the next Napoleon video, Napoleon's Bloodiest Day, Borodino. Here we go.
This Epic History TV video is brought to you by Magellan TV, the documentary streaming service. Russia, 1812. Napoleon invades his former ally with the largest army Europe has ever seen. But for the French Emperor, the decisive blow remains frustratingly beyond reach. Russia's resilience is unlike anything he's ever encountered. And as winter closes in, his army begins the most infamous retreat in history.
Russia's ability to not just fight back, because like I said in the last video, I think they could have gone scorched earth the whole time and just starved Napoleon's Grand Army to death. But the fact that they're the most resilient is not an incredibly high bar. That's kind of one of the things that's not really talked about that much with the Napoleonic Wars is, as you've seen from this series, there is not much resilience in Europe at this time. There is in Britain, but Britain doesn't have the army to do anything about this. So they're doing everything they can economically. They're doing everything they can with their navy, and now they have a small force in Spain. But everybody else in Europe that's been getting steamrolled by Napoleon, their resilience has been almost none. And so it's really a low bar that Russia is having to jump over here as far as resiliency goes, even though they clear it by a lot.
September 1812. 10 weeks had passed since Napoleon invaded Russia with more than 500,000 men. The French Emperor wanted a quick victory over the Russians, one that would force Emperor Alexander to make peace and agree to French terms. But at Vitebsk and then Smolensk, the outnumbered Russian army had narrowly escaped his clutches. The holy city of Smolensk had been virtually destroyed. Napoleon had advanced deep into Russia, and months of marching had left his army decimated by disease and exhaustion. It was now half its original strength, and summer was nearly over. But finally, 70 miles west of Moscow, near the village of Borodino, the Russians had turned to offer battle. Napoleon would have a chance to win the decisive victory that he believed would end the war. In 1812, Napoleon was master of Europe, but his meteoric rise to power had nearly been cut short.
Go support Epic History. I skipped over the ad, but they really do a great job on these videos.
The Russian army, commanded by the 67-year-old, one-eyed veteran General Kutuzov, occupied a defensive position across the two main roads leading from Smolensk to Moscow. General Barclay de Tolly's First Army was on the right, its front protected by the Kalatsha River, steep-banked but shallow and easily forded. Prince Bagration's Second Army was on the left, a more open position but reinforced by major earthworks, the Great Redoubt, and what the French nicknamed, for their shape, the Flèche, the arrows. Another forward redoubt at Shevardino was expected to delay the enemy's advance. Historians still dispute the size of the Russian army, but it's likely Kutuzov had around 121,000 men and 680 guns at Borodino. On the 5th of September, Napoleon's army began to arrive from the west, around 130,000 men and 585 guns.
Wow. So that was way more guns than I was expecting on the Russian side. And they actually have a numerical advantage here on guns, which is wild. That's something that's not super common in these conflicts. I'm curious to see how this works with all of the defensive works, with all of the guns. This is a pretty good spot. This is a pretty good defensive, layout right here.
Napoleon quickly saw that the Borodino redoubt would have to be taken before he could deploy his army, and ordered an immediate assault. The attack was led by Compan's 5th Division of the 1st Corps, supported by the Polish 5th Corps to the south. In several hours of heavy fighting, the redoubt changed hands more than once. But late that evening, the Russians finally withdrew to their main line, and the redoubt fell to the French. Its capture had cost them an estimated 4,000 casualties, while the Russians lost around 6,000 men. Napoleon noted how few prisoners were taken, a worrying sign of the enemy's unbroken resolve. Both sides spent the next day preparing for battle. Marshal Davout, commanding French 1st Corps and widely considered Napoleon's most able subordinate, appealed to the Emperor to use his corps to make a wide, outflanking attack to the south. But Napoleon dismissed the idea as too risky, and instead began preparing for a massive frontal assault on the Russian defenses.
Wow. I cannot imagine that having a full frontal assault is a better idea than at least attempting to flank. This is a wild strategy.
Shortly after dawn on the 7th of September, Orthodox priests paraded one of Russia's holiest icons, Our Lady of Smolensk, before the Russian army. It was a stirring sight for many devout Russian soldiers, thousands of whom would not live to see dusk.
I'm going to do a video later on Catherine the Great, and it has in that a lot of the influence of religion in this time period in Russia, but religion is huge in this time period in Russia. It's a very particular religion. It's a very Russian religion, but it is very, very strong in this time period.
The battle began at 6 a.m. as French batteries opened a deafening cannonade against the Russian defences. Eugene's 4th Corps advanced on Borodino village, lightly held by Jaegers of the Russian Imperial Guard. After clearing the village, his infantry crossed the Kalacha and advanced towards the Great Redoubt, but were driven back with heavy losses. The Russians burned the bridge across the river, but did not launch a counterattack, and Eugene was able to move cannon into the village to put flanking fire on the Great Redoubt. In the centre, Davout's 1st Corps began its advance against the Fleches, coming under heavy fire. While on the right, the Polish 5th Corps, ordered to take Utitsa, got held up in the woods and ravines. Their slow advance allowed Tushkov's 3rd Corps to send a division north to reinforce the Fleches defences. Kutuzov, at his headquarters in Gorky, took little part in the battle, leaving tactical decisions to his subordinates. Barclay and Bagration had spent most of the summer arguing furiously over strategy, but in the hour of crisis, they put their differences aside. They could see the main French attack was falling on the Russian centre and left. So Barclay ordered General Bagavout's 2nd Corps south to reinforce Bagration. Fighting around the Flèche intensified as the French captured one of the earthworks, only to be driven out by a Russian counterattack. Davout himself was injured in the fighting as he fell from his dying horse, but he refused to leave the field. When Russian cavalry counterattacked, Marshal Murat himself led the French cavalry forward to meet them. Ney's 3rd Corps now joined the attack on the Flèche. A charge by Russian cuirassiers forced Murat to take shelter in a square of Württemberg infantry. Murat, with his flamboyant dress and reckless courage, had now even made a name for himself among the Russians. The Cossacks in particular saw him as a kindred spirit, and were eager to capture him alive if they could. To the south, Polish troops now took Utitsa, which the Russians set ablaze before withdrawing. But General Bagavout's reinforcements arrived just in time to shore up the Russian flank. Around 10 AM, Eugène launched another attack on the Great Redoubt. It was briefly captured by Morand's 1st Division, before his men were thrown out by a ferocious Russian counterattack.
What is going on north of here? I feel like the Russians have a bunch of troops up there that really aren't playing any part in this so far. If there are French troops up there that I just can't see, then that makes sense. They're just kind of holding down their spot. But if there are not French troops up there, then I'm confused about what they're doing up there. I'm confused about why they aren't either swinging or moving south to reinforce. They kind of just seem to be out there on their own right now, away from really everything that's going on, and that's kind of a weird move.
The Russian army's 27-year-old artillery commander, General Kutesov, was killed leading one of these counterattacks. A heroic death, but a blow to the organization of Russian artillery for the rest of the day. Fighting continued to rage around the Flèche earthworks. Some counted as many as 6 major French assaults, involving 45,000 troops, with hundreds of cannon on both sides, pouring fire into the packed ranks. More than once, French infantry fought their way into one of the Russian positions, only to be driven out again at bayonet point. Junot's Westphalian Corps was sent forward in support, helping to clear Russian skirmishers from the woods to the south. General Bagration was close to the action, overseeing the defense of the Flèche, leading forward reinforcements and ordering counterattacks.
See, this is where I feel like the initial idea of the flank could have been a better strategy here. Even just with the reinforcements going south, I feel like if you threaten the Russians down there, so say they win further south and they push the Russians back, the entire Russian army is going to have to retreat if you push that flank back even a little bit further. Because then it's going to have the entire flank of the main center of the army is going to be wide open. That's why I feel like that would have been tactically a better decision here. Even if Napoleon is right, or maybe not right, but even if you give him the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, well then don't throw your whole battle plan into a flank, I would still have sent a decently large force down there to see if that's something that you could do. Because like I said, you push that southern Russian group back even just a little bit further, the flank of the main army and defensive position is now open.
Around 10 AM, he was hit in the leg by shell fragments. Mortally wounded, he was carried from the field. Shaken by the loss of their iconic commander, the exhausted Russian infantry began to fall back. The French finally took the Fleches. Marshal Murat then led forward Friant's division, First Corps' last reserve, supported by waves of heavy cavalry on both flanks. Russian grenadiers formed squares to ward off the French cuirassiers, while their own guard cavalry fought the French in a giant confused melee, with heavy losses on both sides. The Russians resisted doggedly, but the combined onslaught of French artillery, cavalry and infantry proved irresistible. As the Russians pulled back, Friant's infantry fought their way into the village of Semyonovskaya. The Russian centre was in disarray and seemed close to breaking. Surely now was the time for Napoleon to deliver the knockout blow. For most of the day, Napoleon remained at his headquarters near Borodino. Those around him later said that illness, as well as the exertions of the long campaign, had left him tired and irritable. As the Russian centre buckled, Murat and his staff urged him to send forward his last reserve, the Imperial Guard. The Emperor refused. "If there is another battle tomorrow," he asked them, "where is my army?" But he did make one exception. Barclay was continuing to move troops from his unengaged right wing to bolster the centre.
There you go.
As Osterman Tolstoy's 4th Corps arrived behind the Russian centre, French observers feared they were massing for an attack. So Napoleon ordered forward General Sorbier's Guard artillery. His batteries opened a devastating fire on the enemy. Yet even as they were mown down in their ranks, the Russian infantry stood their ground. On the Russian right wing, all remained quiet, so General Platov, commander of the Don Cossacks, proposed that he lead an attack on the lightly defended Borodino village.
The Cossacks are so awesome. They're so great. He's like, all right, well, nothing's going on here, so why don't we go in and start messing some stuff up and just kind of see what we can get into.
Permission received, Generals Platov and Uvarov led a force of 8,000 Cossacks and cavalry across the Kalacha River. They fell on French and Italian troops around Borodino with complete surprise, spreading panic and disorder. Grouchy's 3rd Cavalry Corps had to be pulled back across the river to drive off the Russians. Russian commanders saw this raid as a missed opportunity, but it had delayed the next French attack by 2 hours, and may have persuaded Napoleon that he was right to hold back his reserve.
It really is crazy, and this is why I was saying earlier about, it not being a high bar to get over as far as the resistance that the Russians are giving. This is, they aren't doing anything crazy here. Like, they are just standing and fighting and not running. They have the troops to match, they have the guns to match, and they are holding their ground at least as well as they can. And in that, all of these quotes from the French are like, Jesus, this is a massacre. This is just total carnage. And it's like, yeah, that's, when you have a determined enemy, that is what, this is as close as you can get to modern war pre-World War I. Like, you have the guns, you have the artillery, you have good rifles. Like, this is what war is. It is carnage. If you have a side, an enemy that you're facing, that is actually willing and able to fight, this is what it's going to be.
Around 3 p.m, the French launched their biggest assault yet on the Great Redoubt. Russian gunners targeted the French infantry advancing to their front, allowing French cavalry to outflank the redoubt and charge it from the rear. Saxon cavalry were first in, cutting down Russian infantry and gunners almost to the last man. It was an astonishing feat by the horsemen, against all the rules of war, and testament to the ferocity of the fighting. As Eugene's infantry consolidated their hold on the redoubt, he ordered forward all the available cavalry to exploit this success. But they were met and checked by the last Russian cavalry reserves. Eugene now implored Napoleon to commit the Imperial Guard, but again the Emperor refused. "I will not destroy my guard," he told his staff. "I am 800 leagues from France, and I will not risk my last reserve."
What do y'all think about this decision here? This is twice that Napoleon's army has had the Russians kind of moving back, has been on the offensive, they've broken through, and Napoleon has decided that it's just not the move. What do y'all think? Do y'all think that this is prudence on his part, that he really is hundreds of miles into Russia, and if his army is destroyed, it's over? Or could he have just totally routed the Russians if he had sent in the last bit of ammo that he had in his pocket here? Which one of those do y'all think that is?
By 5 p.m., both armies were in a state of utter exhaustion. The battlefield was strewn with dead and wounded. Some infantry battalions could muster only a third of their strength. Cavalry could advance no faster than a trot. Gun crews were collapsing with fatigue. As dusk approached, fighting slowly died out across the battlefield. Napoleon and the French army expected the fighting to resume the next day. But by dawn, Kutuzov, having learned the full, horrifying scale of Russian losses, had ordered a withdrawal. The losses on both sides were enormous. Russian casualties are estimated at 44,000. French losses around 30,000, including 49 generals, 12 of them killed. Borodino would prove to be the bloodiest single day of the Napoleonic Wars. The Russian army could not fight another battle until it had received major reinforcements. And so Kutuzov decided that he must abandon Moscow. On the 15th of September, a week after his victory at Borodino, Napoleon entered the city. He would find it virtually deserted, and already the first fires starting to burn. Thank you.
Okay, so I actually have another question here. I have read a lot of World War I and World War II stuff. That is much more my forte as far as more modern war is concerned. Although I much prefer ancient warfare to modern stuff. However, this series has made me think about something that I keep bouncing back and forth on. Is it almost single-handedly the invention and prevalence of the machine gun that brings about the need for trenches? Because as I look at all of these different, battles in the Napoleonic Wars and pushes and wins and losses, in almost all of them, these old tactics are just not possible if there are, 20 machine guns on the battlefield. And so I've always thought that the modern warfare was more like there was the more men and it was the huge artillery and that sort of stuff that, you know, caused the circumstance to need to have the trenches in World War One. But I'm wondering if not single-handedly, almost single-handedly, the availability of the machine gun. Because all of these tactics, all of these charges, all of this stuff is just, I mean, it's really not anything if there's that type of gun on the field. So it's something I've been wondering over the last couple of videos. I'm curious what you guys think. I'll get to the next Napoleon video tomorrow. I've already recorded the next Winter War video. I'll probably also put it out tomorrow. Like, comment, subscribe. The channel keeps building. I appreciate all the support. Put in the comments any questions or anything you want to point out about the video. If there's anything I missed on tactics or mindset or anything like that, feel free to point it out. I love the conversation. So with all that being said, I'll see you guys next time.